Well, we've been talking about footprints a lot, from footprints redating and literally confirming people in the United States at 23,000 BC or so, to other footprints which are showing a hominid humanoid species at 6.2 million years, kind of refuting the total out of Africa theory. But there's one that's a little bit different, for it shows handprints and footprints together here, which are caught in limestone, but at one time this was a mud bank. It's somewhere between what they're dating at 169 to 226,000 years ago. Basically, somewhere between 170 and 225. Because of the vegetation or whatever that was trapped in it and the way they were being able to measure it. So it's a pretty interesting find. And where this is on the edge of the Tibetan plateau and what we would think of Proto-Indo-European lands and the Tibetan mountains. Of course, instantly trying to give this credit to Denisovans, though they're not really known to be in this area at this time, because later, not too far away in Tibet, there ends up being a people that do have Denisovan genes, but that was thought to have come over 100,000 years later almost. But now we know there were a lot of hominids that lasted on a lot of time, and we don't know what their genetics were. So in some ways, it easily could still add up to be one of these people. Here it is again, and you can see some footprints and handprints. A minute ago was a 3D scope kind of picture onto it. So we've talked about foot trails and stuff here lately, but haven't really got the handprints on it and stuff here. But here we can see the individual handprints that are put into it, and it's a couple of groups, and they figured by the size of the handprints compared to modern people, this must have been a 7 or 8 year old kid and another one that's about 12 years old, as far as the handprints go. So they don't appear to be fully sized. And there's one thing that kind of goes along with that idea of them not being fully sized, perhaps, that we know of, that goes along much later and carried into a modern form, is actually the handprints that you can put on the walls. So here we can see, I'm going to put my hand in here, a small representation but a bigger one, and the feet that are here and the hands. And a lot of things have been said about this so far, from this is some type of ritual, like I was talking about just a moment ago, to an idea of maybe the kids were just going to pick up something and it was slippery mud and they almost slipped, both of them at the same time, and they put their hands down. Because there's feet in between each one of them. But they make sure they don't walk that way because there's not other footprints that are leading on just after that, farther north, if you will. So that's pretty cool. So people think that some little scene like this must have happened at one time. And another thought comes to mind, that maybe they were leaving a print around what used to be a waterway somehow, and it was wet, to kind of leave a mark of themselves. And in doing so, if any other people were around, perhaps they'd even seen remnants of them or evidence of them, but not them. They left their prints to let them know. It's just kind of like an animalistic type of thing, but hey, it's an idea going on it. Because they could have seen remnants of somebody, where a fire was made, things like that. So it could be a myriad of different things, really. And we're familiar with this type of thing, where they take red ochre or white chalk and put it in their mouth, and they put their hand up and then blow across the back of it, and it leaves a shadow for them. And we've realized now that pretty much every form we've seen of this seems to be a coming of age. Some people have even had a dualistic part thing in it, but this seems to have been a coming of age type of thing. So that in some ways makes sense, but then again, with just finding it with this simplistic look that we're looking at, I don't think we could really give credit for it to, to be something of that level, really. And so they want to give credit to Denisovans right off the bat, and that's the people that we only have a piece of a jaw of and a finger bone or two, and they've gotten genetics out of it, so they do realize it has to go with later people that are in the Himalayas and other people that are in the islands and so on. It's one depiction of them here, and it comes out, of course, to me to actually looking like a hobbit in some way. It just doesn't look normal. And so there's a myriad of creatures that we actually know now were all still extant at this time, in fact, much after. Some hominid forms and so on that this could be. And so there's a lot of speculation going on right now with the possibilities, I guess, of what it could be. There are things that get discounted somewhat. And this is Homo sapiens and some of the representations of early Homo sapiens, the recreations of them and what we have. And they want to discredit that idea because this would push their range at that early time a little too far. But they also mentioned that they think that Homo sapien had only been around for 200,000 years. And so since this dates from 170 to over 200,000 years, that's probably impossible. But we know now they date from Jebel Irud Cave at 315 to 325,000 years. And if you give somebody that long of time in between two spans, it's easily possible that it could be them. They don't believe it's Neanderthals, really. One thought comes to mind is that new one that we found that somewhat looks Neanderthalish, that is the dragon man, that we found a representation of near Israel and all the way over in Asia, or the Far East, showing you a connective and perhaps some missing ancestor that we actually have. People have initially thought that we may have deeper connections to it than we actually do to the Neanderthals somehow. So that's strange and exciting as soon as we can come out with that. And we know now that Homo erectus lived on much farther and much longer. But there's no evidence that this form of Homo erectus that you're looking at here would have ever made it out of Africa. Every form that we have, forms of that made it out of Africa, look quite radically different. So it looks like it's either Denisovans or maybe Neanderthals, or somewhere it could have been Homo sapiens actually, and given us a different idea of who this could be. There's a lot of thoughts that it could be different forms, and again they're trying to pin it on Denisovans, and that would be okay too if they could get enough more information rather than just a little jawbone and so on like that out of them. Maybe it would be something. I don't know if you've seen it, but within about 2 months ago I made a video where now they've confirmed that that bracelet that they said went with Denisovans isn't in the same time strata, and they can't connect the two together when they tried to do it before. So that's not a Denisovan artifact, and maybe the advanced people that were making that cool bracelet weren't even them. Maybe it was that Homo longi, dragon man. Maybe it was actual Homo sapiens who had been around, for he had advanced their toolkit than anybody at the time. And we're finding out now that they had a much more advancement than was previously given credit for. And so this had been a place that's kind of close to the Himalayas. Not quite this close, I guess, but looking on to it. And so one wonders, who was this person that one time looked upon this and had some kids with him too, and somehow left his footprints upon the world. And handprints this time, by the way, guys. Let me know your thoughts downstairs, because at this point it's really up in arms, but I think it really could be, well, almost D, all of the above, although there'd have to be a few people admitted out of the idea. Peace.